Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school. So you can feel cool. Give it to me, baby. Baby. Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to the Miles and Crawford Variety Hour.
Woo woo! Welcome, welcome. Hey, guys. I think we're going to try to stay on track on this podcast. Maybe we promise.
We've spent like 45 minutes talking already, so we got some of it out of our system.
Some of it.
We will try, let's be honest. I mean, we give it our best. But it is a variety hour, so you're going to get some variety in your diet.
Well, excuse us. We both have taken a nap today, so we're pretty.
It's after midnight.
It is after midnight. We have napped. We each have coffee in our hands, so we're very excited right now, and awake. We're actually awake. We're not grouchy. We're not drunk. So this is a whole new podcast, man.
This is gonna be interesting.
It will be. Okay, guys.
Be reading.
First and foremost, again, go listen to us on potable.co. We actually dropped to number 12.
12? Oh.
Dude, I know we're so out of the running, but you know what?
I know, but in the beginning we were at like 4.
Yep, we were.
3.
Yep. But then all these other fucking podcasts got up on Potable, and they're like, no, son of a bitch. But that's okay.
We don't need it. We need it.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I'm like, y'all got y'all got Patreon. Y'all got Patreon users. We do not, because you guys don't give us money. So also, visit our Patreon page, which is just patreon.com/MCVarietyHour. We are starting to utilize our Patreon page. We made it and then never did anything with it, so now we're going to start doing stuff with it. We
kind of didn't really know what to do with it. I mean, we don't have a huge following that people want to pay for content that's not people. Yet. But we're getting there now, so we're trying to beef it up a bit. Entice you,
get you all up in our business. Or if you are listening to us on Podbean, you can actually just donate directly to us on Podbean. So I mean,
I didn't know that, really.
Yeah, they can pay to us right on Podbean. So give us your fucking money.
That's all we're asking.
That's all we're asking.
That's no big deal. Everybody wants your money. Why not give it to us?
Yeah, even if it's like a one-time donation, we'll take it. We'll send you out a thank you card and a sticker. And
fuck those orphans or Greenpeace or whatever else, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
what the hell, man? I already lose $6 a month to my personal
right.
Patreon. So come on now, people, give me some money.
Yeah.
We also want to go ahead and give a few shout-outs this week because everybody's had some good episodes. I actually today just listened to Home Video Hustle. Really great guys. They did a phenomenal review of the movie Songs of the South. That was a really good podcast I listened to today. I personally really like this one called Bills with Luke Scorzelli. Sorry, Luke, if I mispronounce your last name. I really love his podcast. They are just like 30 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer, about all kinds of information, breaking down tax reform, breaking down Bitcoin. The kid really knows it, and it really is. He's a young gentleman, but he knows his shit. It's so interesting when you need somebody to kind of break down the laws or breaking down what's going on without it being a boring, wiki site. This guy really gives you here is a tax reform bill in about 30 minutes about pros and cons, done. Very unbiased, really like him. The Evening Radio Podcast is another really good one. Somebody that kind of puts in the news, but, it's with their own spin on it, which is nice. And then I know NPR never needs more shout-outs, but there's this one called Offshore.
I love NPR, though.
They got so many, but Offshore, I know it's coming back, and I just can't wait for it to come back. If you haven't started listening to Offshore, you should.
I think I'm going to. That looked interesting.
Dude, it's so interesting. They take a look into, it starts off in Hawaii, and about some of the crime against their own locals from our government and just other things that happen there, their own racial divide in Hawaii, and how they've dealt with it, and as well as, sacred lands and satellite dishes. And I mean, it's so good. Offshore, especially if you're into any kind of true crime, and it's any kind of those. This is a really, really well written, well researched podcast. Obviously, because they had a backing.
You know how those true crime podcasts listeners are very elite.
Very elite. And so I think that they would really appreciate listening to Offshore. So I'm going to give them a shout out just because it's so fucking good and I love it.
Hits all your little check boxes, girls.
Yeah.
And boys.
And boys. It's going to love it. So that's it.
I'm always
that's a tangent.
No tangent?
No,
wait.
Not yet.
No, we'll get to that tangent.
Later.
That's amazing, Miles. Usually you start off with a tangent. So, hey, shut up.
That little kitty cat.
I mean, let's just address the fact that there's a cat crying. Shut up. She's trying to get her toy. It's stuck. Sorry, everybody. You know, sometimes we have animals that just cut in. They're attention whores.
Save the animals.
Oh, I wanted to tell you this story because it really cracks me up, and I think our listeners... It's a real quick story. I just was like, this is funny. So we have a rapid fryer, and it's in a little metal box, and it's got the oil in it, and you just put the food in, you press a button, and it shoots the food out at the end, and it's electric. And last night I was cooking like French fries and stuff for people who'd been drinking, and every time I would cook something, it smelled like natural gas. And we have like a gas stove and stuff back there. All the pilots were lit, and I couldn't figure it out. Well, 2 of our senior officers were sitting at the bar drinking, and I walked out there, and I was like, I smelled natural gas in the kitchen. And sure enough, one of them popped up, walked around the side, and came back and was smelling. And he's like, I don't smell anything. And I was like, I couldn't smell it either. And I was like, that's weird. I know I smelled it. So I went back out to the bar, and about a half hour later, somebody else wanted something. So I went back there and cooked it, and I smelled it again. And I'm like, so I come back out, and I'm like, I smell natural gas. Sure enough, here come that other senior officer back to the kitchen with me and smelling around. He's like, I don't smell anything. And he came back out to the bar, and about 20 minutes later, I just started laughing. I was like, you know what? I was like, that was really easy to just lure you guys back to the kitchen. I could have conked you over the head and had you boiled down by now. Taking you home to my meat grinder. You know, like all I could think of in my head was like this comic, like The Far Side by Gary Larson, of just men back there with flypaper down, you know, like, and at the end of the night, I got like 6 dudes back there, all stuck. Like, look how many men I caught tonight. So,
I like that.
I just want to hashtag lure awareness for men. You guys are way too easy to lure. Oh, I smell natural gas. Follow me. I think it's a good thing that women aren't more serial killers because y'all just wander back. You'd be extinct. This would be an Amazon planet at this point.
It's so true. And women, man, we're all about trying to kill some. We're all about death, especially in the 30s.
I could give you poison, you know? Yeah. So, kind of cracked me up, though. I just was like, I should have put some flypaper down. I could have had a whole pen of men back there. Caught 6 tonight.
Got him.
Okay, honey poo.
I feel like this should be like a social experiment. Like, just walk around and see
how many guys can you rope up? I smell gas over here. Could you help me? And how many of those guys try to rape me in the process?
Oh, God.
Listen, men get lured 6 times, but I almost got raped 8 times, so, you know, and one of them tried to murder me.
So, I mean, you know.
I mean, we're still the weaker, I shouldn't say that. That's terrible.
Edit that out. Wrong.
We're the vulnerable. There we go.
Vulnerable, there we go. Yeah.
Anyways, back to Garrett.
Back to Garrett.
We posted a little tidbit for our Patreon. Am I saying that right? I mean, I think we are, but I don't know.
Patreon.
Yeah. Patreon. If anybody needs the spelling of it, they're like, I wish that they would spell it so I know where I'm going. I mean, but you could type it in too. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. Stay tuned as we grow this. Oh yeah, I wrote this line. Stay tuned as we grow this from a flower into a mother trucking garden, folks.
Hell yeah.
With your support. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive back into our continuing series, part 3 of Drugs in America. Today's podcast takes us through the 1980s and into the 90s and how it seems to reinvent itself with each passing decade. Right now we're going through the heroin opiate epidemic. So here's some facts.
The Contras is where we're still at for those who maybe just now tuning in.
No, I meant like current day. I'm sorry, I did that. That is confusing. What we're focusing on today is we're going to be doing the 80s and Contras and stuff, but I was meaning like from the 90s to the 2000s and then the aught-10s. Dealing with heroin and opiates these days.
But this all did start back with our first 2. If you haven't listened, you can go ahead and start back on episode 20 and catch yourself up on what we've been talking about, which is the Contras and the CIA bringing in the crack epidemic. and we're finishing that up. So this is where Crawford is going to come back in, like you said, the 80s and the 90s of how we finish up the Contras.
We're going to talk about some quick facts here. The origins of the Contras started back... I just want to say, Miles has done all the research on this. She's been amazing. She definitely has, like, a couple of gold stars on her tinfoil hat. So, go her. And it's her birthday week, everybody. So, happy birthday, Miles.
Thanks. Being 35 feels fine.
It's all right, isn't it? It's like, you know what? I'm okay with it. It's the lead up to it. And then when you turn 35, you're like, that's okay. I'm all right with it.
I'm all right. Yeah, it took me a minute. But, a day of drinking yesterday definitely helped out the...
Numbed it a little bit.
Yeah, helped it out. I mean, Wednesday I was definitely drunk enough going into my birthday. And then yesterday was like sober drunk day. It was very nice.
Oh, yeah. All right. So the origins of the Contras started back in the 70s and were made of three groups. Ex-guardsmen of the Nicaraguan National Guard. Number 2, and I looked this up, so I don't want to hear anybody saying I didn't say it right, anti-Somozistas, who had supported the revolution but felt betrayed by the Sandinista government. Nicaraguans who had avoided direct involvement in the revolution but opposed the Sandinistas. Oh, I read this okay in my head. Although it was never proven that America had created the Contras, the ties to them were extremely deep. There is irrefutable evidence that the U.S. played a very large role in financing, training, arming, and advising the Contras. It's without argument to say that the Contras only became capable of carrying out significant military operations as a result of this support. The U.S. had a lot of problems with most of Nicaragua because of their support of Cuba and the Soviet Union. The U.S. government also believed they would hurt United States' economic ability in parts of Nicaragua itself. In 1982, Ronald Reagan actually signed off on $19 million of aid to the Contras via the U.S. CIA agency. Ronald Reagan believed that this would be one of the best ways to fight communism and assist... We have such a thing about communism. I'm not going to get off on a tangent, but my God. And, I mean, we're always like, oh, commies, not the commies. And assist the American government implementing our version of freedom and politics in Nicaragua. 2 years later, in 1984, we took that $19 million to Contra and upped it to $24 million. But don't worry, we gave up shortly after the $24 million, as Contra was not overtaking Nicaragua the way we wanted them to. That's a familiar story for us. Congress was tired of Ronnie's nonsense, and so by 1985, we stopped the funding. After 1985, there was escalations and de-escalations throughout the Contra-Nicaragua War. Fast forward to 1987 when the Central America Peace Accord was signed, and by 1988 the Contras were starting to work on negotiations. However, with all the conflicts, America had exhausted Nicaragua. This war had cost them over 30,000 lives by 1990, and it had introduced an embargo that hurt the country enough that America was able to successfully micromanage the country into elections, working only in their favor, along with certain policies being put into place, because as always, America is a big old fucking asshole.
Dude, we really are. And I will have to agree with you about our problem.
How many times have we installed governments to favor what we want? I mean, I watched...
And how often have we failed those countries that we have put our government in, you know?
We're like the aliens that come and they just mine a planet, and then they're like, fuck your planet, you know? I don't know what movie it was, but, you know, that's what we basically do to other countries. We're just like, you know what, we want this, we want that, and then we bitch about China doing it.
Yeah, well, exactly. And like you said, it's all about this whole, fight communism thing, and you're very right on that. It wasn't, and that's also, as a slight reminder for anybody who doesn't know this, is the words, "In God we trust," while we stand up, and whatever for the flag, that was actually added in the 1950s, mid-50s, mid to late 50s, when we went ahead and we actually added that into the Pledge of Allegiance. That was not originally a part of the Pledge of Allegiance. We added "In God We Trust" as a way to try to, we thought by saying those words that it would pull out people who weren't saying it. That was how they would call them out as communists and what they thought were spies, is that if they did not say "In God We Trust," it meant that they weren't real Americans. So that wasn't even in place since the dawn of our forefathers. The Pledge of Allegiance and "In God We Trust" was actually added in order to help out with our patriotism against communism.
I actually came across a $10 bill at work the other day, and it was from like 1950 or 1955. And it was really cool looking because, it's been, how many times have we changed that?
Oh my gosh, right?
But you know what I did notice is when I compared it to another $10 bill is it didn't say "In God We Trust" on it. And I was like, I forgot about that wasn't always a thing.
No, it really wasn't. And it's crazy how it just, what we will do in order to make sure that other people only follow our sense of nationalism. It's stupid.
It was okay. You know, I've seen other people from other countries. They think our nationalism is weird and creepy. They think our Pledge of Allegiance is kind of a zombie-like thing. Like, you all just stand up and you blindly recite with your hand over your heart. Like, that's weird. Nobody else does that.
Well,
you know,
North
and I
Korea.
never thought about it. Well, right. You know, dear leader. That's how Trump is. If only they would call me dear leader.
It's so true.
Well, he had the most watched State of the Union address ever. It's his largest ever inauguration crowds, and he's got the best words. So
Bigly.
big.
So anyway, so during all these years that we have covered in part 1 and part 2, many things were happening that we were allowing. We as the American people allowed and funded the Contras, who were charged. Now, during this time that we were giving them $19 and $24 million, the Contras were being charged with multiple human right violations. Those violations included raping women, kidnapping and torturing of civilians, burning their homes, and even attacking health clinics. There was no sense of what they were doing, and as usually,
I know, isn't it terrible? It's like, I fucking read that fine. What can I say it fine?
Right? And as usual, we turned a blind eye to what they were doing because we were funding them to do it. So we were giving these people money. We knew what they were doing, and we continued to allow them to rape and pillage villages just because we wanted them to beat Nicaragua, because apparently Nicaragua was the bad guy. Funny how that works. As always, there was a lot of illegal covert. I cannot talk. There was a lot of illegal covert operations that were happening as well during all this time. And if I got into propaganda, well, hell, this podcast would actually never end. However, what I can tell you is that after this war, quote unquote, ended, we still left Nicaragua as one of the poorest nations in Latin America. Although we are friends with them now, we have left them with nothing and continued that legacy for now 30 years. We did this because our government allowed a full-on drug ring to happen in this country, both Nicaragua and in America. And because we aided in crimes against humanity. Nicaragua was not the first country we did this to, nor will it be the last. We have made drugs and destruction of other countries our main mission when it comes to looking like heroes, when we are really the villains. Nicaragua was just a case I happened to fall into while reading through Facebook one day. Again, I came across Gary Webb and really got intrigued by this because I was reading Sean King's Facebook, and he had posted this about this, and I was like, I really want to look into this, and that's how we came to where we are. But the more I do, and the more I kept reading about this, there was so much more to this story. I knew that there was a problem before Gary Webb. The Dark Alliance series was a phenomenal way to help open up what was going on, and there would be so much more things that happened with Nicaragua. I know our government is corrupt, but how far did that corruption go after we uncovered the truth? And that's something that I would continue to to look into.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. I think I mentioned this when we first started the podcast, but I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast. I know I've talked to you about it, but The Untold History by Oliver Stone. It was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is. It's also a book. Very, very good series. I don't remember how many episodes, but it really opens your eyes to how many times we've installed our own dictatorships and governments into other countries. I mean, almost every decade. And it's very eye-opening. I really enjoyed it. And this is just one of many instances that we've stuck our nose and just destroyed a country for our own weird, sick needs, So I think we still are uncovering the truth of our government, as we have seen this week with the memos. Wild opening show distraction from the upcoming midterms. I just read an article about how they're trying to distract us from the fact that with the midterms coming up and everything, and we're going to see a lot more propaganda, and we've gotten warnings about Russians are going to start meddling in the midterms. So that's going to be interesting to see out what kind of paperwork and things that they release just right before the election. So everybody just kind of stay vigilant and make sure you're fact checking what you read, and don't fall prey to that, please.
PolitiFact,
lack of
Snopes,
information,
all kinds of ways to go through that.
Right. there are so many ways to fact check or just to check. If you've never heard of the website and you're reading a news article with them, I'm not saying that there's not reputable people out there doing good journalism, but if you can't find a reputable source for what you're reading, then you're probably reading fake news. So just try to educate yourself. I mean, I even make that mistake, and I'm pretty good at making sure that what I talk about, but sometimes I fall prey to memes. I'm like, sounds right to me, but you gotta always fact check what you're talking about, because that was a problem with the last election, and I really like that there's kind of an effort in the country right now to because it had such a bearing on the last election of everything that went through and all fake news and blah blah blah. I hate that term, but people just need to stay vigilant and make sure that you're fact checking and you know what's going on, because as you can see, memes and fake news, it just influences people to make terrible decisions. I mean, how many Trump voters are we seeing that are like, the wall he wants to build, some Americans are going to end up on the other side of it, and they voted for him. That shit makes me laugh. But anyways, the lack of information to the public has only fueled speculation and made us acutely more aware of how corrupt we are as a nation. The government put this blame on the nation or groups of militants without confirming their own hand in the crime and drug problems we still see. Though the story stopped, air quotations, people, in 1986, things were happening through the epidemic of crack cocaine. In fact, between 1984 and 1989, the homicide rate for black males aged 14 to 17 more than doubled, and the homicide rate for black males aged 18 to 24 increased nearly as much. During this period, the black community also experienced a 20 to 100% increase in fetal death rate, low birth weight babies, weapons arrests, and the number of children in foster care. We bring these rates up as we stated the crack cocaine epidemic that was brought into neighborhoods that were of the African American race. And as we talked about in various episodes about the jailing of our community, by the time we reached 1996, approximately 6 rated in the U.S. were sentenced on drug charges. The United States remains the largest overall consumer of narcotics in the world as of 2014. We also jail the most people in the world. A few reasons for these increases in crime were most as distribution for the drug to end user occurred mainly in low-income inner-city neighborhoods.
In the little neighborhoods.
Yeah. We also know that back in 1986, when all these hearings were going on with the Contras, that our own Congress passed laws that created a 100-to-1 sentencing disparity for the possession of trafficking of crack when compared to penalties for trafficking of powder cocaine, which have been widely criticized as discriminatory against minorities, mostly blacks, who are more likely to use crack than powder cocaine. Price difference, obviously. We can see here that our government started a war on drugs in order to start their prison pay system. They targeted certain races for these drugs and then knew they could then turn around and lock them up. Many of our own officials have never seen a night in jail for their crimes. However, and this is the biggest hypocrite of things, chose to lock up those they fed the drugs to. This is something that we are all aware of. It's something we don't talk about, but we all fucking know. We don't want to admit it or lend truth to it, but it's very obvious that our government's fucked up. This doesn't have to be on the media. This is just a fact. The fact is, it's just a fact.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I had to say. Like, I mean, it's completely.
For that, I'm sorry.
No. Like, it's insane to me how people will sit there and fight statistics all day long. And the thing is about statistics, though, is that, okay, yes, statistics take, your average, blah, 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 blah. But when you're talking about 100-to-1 sentencing disparity, after you put the crack cocaine epidemic into place into certain inner city neighborhoods, like it only perpetuated and propelled, or whatever the right word is for that, the prison to pay system. And people will sit there and say, well, the media is trying to make cops look bad, or the FBI look bad, or the CIA look like, no,
they are bad.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Like,
they've been caught on camera. Was it you that was telling me that you read an article about, or maybe I saw it on the news? I thought it was you that told me about one of the police departments was caught with fake guns or something.
Oh, yeah, that was in Baltimore. Okay, yeah, so that one, oh my gosh, I was telling Andy all about this because okay, first of all, I'm a huge fan of The Wire. It was an HBO special. It all dealt with Baltimore.
I watched the first couple episodes, or first 2 seasons of that. I didn't finish it.
Dude, it's so fucking good. And
it is.
But Baltimore, has always obviously had some problems, but they finally uncovered one of the biggest corruption scandal that our nation has ever seen. And of course, it's not getting a blip on the radar. But what they found out is that over the last...
Of course not. Why would it?
Of course. Over the last, like, something like 15, 20 years, I mean, they have been training these cops in Baltimore to buy these kids' guns that look like real guns that they would carry on them. They would just have them in their pockets. And that way, whenever they shot somebody, they could plant the gun on them and say that they shot at them first. And that's what they thought that it was. Like, it was I mean, not one cop said this. I'm talking dozens of cops talked about how they were trained to carry guns, fake guns on them to plant on other people so that way they could shoot first and have no questions asked later. It's fucked. Like, it's so...
Doesn't that just disgust you?
It is. And it's more fucked up that there's so many, there's so many things that are fucked up with our drug laws as it is. And kudos to California, who are trying to wipe the slate clean of thousands and thousands of people who right now
I saw that.
Dude, they're trying to... I'm so happy. Like, they're trying to get... in Pennsylvania as well. So California is trying to wipe the slate clean of a bunch of people who are in the jail system right now for petty, stupid marijuana laws. And then Pennsylvania has officially decided to end the bail bond system. They think that it shows greatly disparity.
I saw
you
that
can't you can't ask somebody to put 10% down of $500,000 for bond. So they're
for their house.
Yeah, or put up their house, put up their cars, da 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 da. Especially when some of these people are being thrown into jail for absolutely, to them it is. It's you're given that
life sentences sometimes.
Yeah, or they're given $500,000 for a crime they didn't commit, and then as we've seen over the years of the amount of exonerations, we got to imagine that you're being illegally thrown into jail for a crime you didn't commit, then you're asked to put down $50,000. Just to be able to walk the streets as an innocent person that you are. And if you can't, then you're giving up your house, your car. All these people are going into bankruptcy because of this bail bond system. So Pennsylvania is getting rid of that. California is trying to get inmates out of jail. There's a lot of things that we all should be learning from that alone, and I hope that it's a trend that continues to go. There is a lot of, gross misrepresentation of certain ethnicities in order to screw them with the system. We talk about, as Crawford was saying, about how the government put the drugs into inner cities because they knew that as somebody who was poor, didn't have a lot of money, here's a quick fix, here's a way to become a drug dealer. We implemented those ideas into these cities. And
then we put liquor stores and gun stores on every corner to help fuel it.
Exactly. And we did these things with intention, and we did these things, and they targeted certain neighborhoods. You're talking about from South Central, you're talking about, deep in New Orleans, you're talking about even Miami,
yep.
Even on the East Coast, you're talking about the inner cities of New York. I mean, we implemented all of these little drug cartels from our own government, as almost, to me, it's almost like a social experiment. Like, let's see how many people we can get locked up,
right.
Because, especially back in the day, I mean, obviously we know that there is a racial problem. There just is. It's a racial divide.
Very obviously. We keep trying to ignore it, and I see comments and whatnot, and it's like, how can you ignore what you just saw? I mean, there was that video, and I think that was a Baltimore police officer. The police officer reset his body cam, but it didn't delete it. He only missed it by a couple seconds, but they actually caught him on camera dropping a gun or something next to his body, or drugs next to his body. It was over a chain link fence. It was like, I was like, oh my God.
And people sit there and be like, well, no, the cop was doing right. I mean, obviously that guy was bad.
How?
Exactly. Like, how? There's so many things that just don't make sense, and we're doing these things because of the fact that we haven't gotten over our race issues. People can sit there and say
shooting unarmed people.
Yep.
Well, he should have listened to the cop. Well, the cop was scared for his life. That is the cop's job.
Yeah.
To disarm. You know what I mean? Like, to diffuse the situation. And if a cop can't do that without shooting somebody, then there's a problem, because we didn't have that problem with police. I mean, we've had problems with police officers being abusive towards black people or minorities in general, but we haven't had that issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
become more relevant because of the fact
that we have technology now. Right.
And I agree.
It's becoming more prevalent. It's like, oh, okay. So what's wrong with our police force that we have basically bullies? And you notice now they've really tried to change their public image. As far as being helpful and trying to reach out and do more community effort, because they're trying to gloss over what a shit organization our police, I call it a police state, but a police country that we live in. I mean, it's ridiculous.
No, I
you get pulled over for anything, and once they get you in the system, that's it. I mean, you spend years and years and years trying to get it out. Once your name's known, they will harass you and bother you and keep you in the system so that you'll pay, pay those fines. If you don't do community service, then you can pay. It's unreal.
Well,
I could go on and on.
We all could. I mean, what bothers me the most is that our police, in general, how they're trained. I mean, it takes them weeks. It's just weeks of training. Like, it takes me longer to learn how to take somebody's blood than it does for somebody to learn how to use a gun and shoot somebody. Like, there's no real preparation in order to become a part of the city force. You know, there's nothing. And you're talking about a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and they all hang out with the same group, and they all have the same thought process.
You can't tell on each other.
Yep, exactly. You know, to me, it's absolutely absurd. Like, you get somebody from a small town, and they have their 3 buddies, and they all hang out, and they all have that same aspect. So let's say that one of those guys have a little bit of racism, right? Like, they're not completely an outward racist, but they're slightly racist. They have it. They have the automatic, you know, trigger in their head, like, oh, there's a Latin American. This is what, you know, I bet you this person has marijuana on them. Oh, they're African American. I bet you they have crack cocaine on them. They already have that mindset before they even approach that person, but they put that mindset into their buddies on the same force. And after so long, so many drinks, so many rides, so many shifts together, it's that conditioning. You know, if you hang out with somebody who's constantly negative, let's put it that way. If I hang out with somebody who every single day is like, the world fucking sucks. Well, yeah, I know, but like, here's my Mary Pop. No, the world fucking sucks. But the world sucks. And it's all you hear constantly, all the time. It's like the media. The world sucks. This is what's wrong. This is what's wrong. This is what's wrong. It is a social. Then you're like, the world is fucked. Everybody is terrible. Life is awful. I'm so negative now because I'm constantly being surrounded by it. And the cops are the same way. They're constantly surrounding themselves by an echo chamber of, this is who the bad people are. Because of a statistic of, well, so many kids from this inner city are drug dealers and gangbangers and da-da-da, you know, therefore every black kid you come across in this neighborhood is a gangbanger. Every single, you know, they don't have that mentality that one of them could be trying to get their degree. They could just be walking. They could, you know, there's all that mentality that goes in. And not only that, but that goes into our healthcare system, our paramedics, all of that, who, because of what they see on a daily basis, they assume the worst before they go ahead and they assume the best about people. And that's a problem with our police country, is that, and not only that, but we now have a president who just wants to, he wants to militarize them. He wants to give them bigger tanks. He wants to give them.
He's blatantly, yep.
He's blatant.
I read something about they're rolling back, blatantly racist and blatant. I mean, Jeff Sessions owns stock in the private prison complex. So this rolled back protections, or something that Obama had done. I can't remember what it was, but I did read that yesterday. So
fuck Jeff Sessions. He's a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, of course, I knew that was going to happen. Jeff Sessions has been trying to make, that's what they're basically just doing. Trump and his little cronies are just bankrupting America. They're trying to make as much money as they can. I mean, I can't tell you how many commercials that I've seen where they're advertising like Trumpy Bear and Trump gold coins and and then what was it, the State of the Union, like if you donated to the campaign, they'd scroll your name across. I've never seen the fucking State of the Union pimped out like that before.
Oh, yeah.
Ever.
I mean,
that's unreal. That's unprecedented.
Well, we have an unprecedented president, you know?
You know, it's such a trashiest fucking family in America moved into the White House. It's just embarrassing. It's like having your embarrassing relative came over for holiday dinner and he wasn't invited.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're all like, I'm really sorry. He's just embarrassed. All
right. So, look, guys, America's fucked. And we know that we're fucked, and we're going to continue to go on with this. But we want to also give us, it looks like we got some, we want to also kind of give you back to.
We're always highlighting how fucked America is.
God, we really are. But, I mean, I don't want to be that negative voice. I don't want to be that person who's constantly beeping in your ear about, you know, how fucked we are. But there is a lot of things that are going on that I think that me and Crawford are both very passionate about when it comes down to the police state, when it comes down to the drug, you know, warfare that's happening in America, and how much shit and bullshit it just actually is. And I don't know how to break it down without having to do, you know, a series.
Change doesn't occur if you just ignore and don't talk about something. And we talk about it a lot. And hopefully it ignites a conversation with one or two of our listeners who talk about it with somebody else, and then that person talks about it with somebody else, and it grows. I'm not saying that we're going to spark a national conversation. I'm just saying that by talking about it and getting that information out, hopefully one person talks to another person talks to another. You know what? And that's basically how it goes, is like word of mouth. And I hope it empowers people when they're arguing or arguing, debating with their friends and their family or whatever, that, yeah, those facts. Like, no, I listened to a podcast the other day and it was talking about the prison complex. And did you know, blah, blah, blah,
Well, exactly.
We talked a lot about the prison complex. I don't even think on purpose.
No, it's natural
it's just
because
something that we keep coming back to.
Well, yeah, because I think that is just, it's not even a sore spot. I mean,
everything's tied to it.
Everything's tied to it. And I mean, when it comes down to the Gary Webb story, and when it comes down to the Contras, when it comes down to how, this stuff rolls into the 1990s and will therefore roll into the nowadays of the drug epidemic, which we will continue to talk about. And we'll have our shenanigans and our fun, podcasts here and there. But we really want to dive into the fact that, we're having a lot of problems in this country right now. And all of this, as everybody says, is a millennial problem. They think that it's a Gen X issue, that it's a Gen Y issue, it's a Gen Z. It's somebody else's problem that somebody brought around because everybody wanted trophies, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that's what happened. I think what really happened at the end of the day, this wasn't about somebody's kid getting a fucking trophy for coming in the last place. It came into a very small systematic thing that the government has been trying to hide itself over and over and over again. And through all of these things, it has divided our country. And I really believe that it's a long game. It's a long game they've been playing for a very long time. I don't give a shit what anybody else has to say, but I do, but I don't. But it's a long game.
And it's only been with it is, and I think it's only been, there's always been investigative journalism and exposed lies and things like that, but it's only been with technology and the internet that we're really uncovering, watching right on camera and, real-time news and, everything's electronic, things are being hacked, there's almost complete transparency anymore. Anything that we want to know, we can know.
Yeah, and I think that too, even when we talk about investigative journalism, what we're not seeing, in my opinion, what we're not seeing enough, like, go ahead and, if you have the interest of doing so, take 30 minutes and go watch Fox News. Then take 30 minutes and watch CNN. Then watch MSNBC. Then watch BBC. Then watch Al Jazeera. Then watch the Young Turks. There's such a different way that journalism is being brought depending on what shows you choose to watch. It's like, for me, if I want to watch my local 13 ABC or channel 11 WTOL, I'm going to get, it's about how it's being broadcasted to me. Who do I like listening to? Who do I like seeing on the television? Like all those things. Or for me, it's,
who do I agree with the most?
Yep, exactly. Like for me, I've always been an NBC person. I'm that person because when I was raised watching Tom Brokaw every night after dinner. That was just how it was. My parent, it's not that there was anything wrong with Peter Jennings or anybody else or Walter Cronkite or, 60 Minutes, which we would watch here and there, but that was a very late, night show growing up, and we didn't always have TV anyways. But at the same time, like for me, I look at most of my, I look for somebody who reminds me of Tom Brokaw, who reminds me of Lisa Ling, who reminds me of even back in the day when Katie Couric used to do really hard-hitting...
I haven't heard her name in forever.
Right? Really, hard-hitting, Dateline specials. I mean, when all these things were happening back in the early 90s...
She got caught up in North Korea. You remember that?
Yeah. I mean...
Wasn't that her that got caught over in North Korea?
Sounds about right.
They were supposedly... I'm pretty sure that was Lisa Ling, and were with a guide or whatever, and they thought they were on the other side of the North Korea border, and they were like, no, you're like 2 miles into North Korea, and I think it was Bill Clinton that went over and got them.
Yeah.
He was like, I'll go over and talk to this dude. Or maybe it was Dennis Rodman. I don't remember who his little buddy is, but whatever.
And we still have journalists that have been held,
But is current TV still on? I always liked that back in like the 2000s. It was Al Gore owned it, and it was a really cool channel. I really liked it. They did a lot of kind of like Vice News type situation.
I think current's still around, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, I mean, do you ever remember back in the day where True Life? I was talking to a girl about this at work. Yeah, but True Life on MTV. When we had oh come on, redhead. I really like her. There was
Kennedy.
There wasn't Kennedy.
No.
The redhead. Because
Kennedy
had the crazy hair.
Tabitha Soren.
So,
ding, 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 ding.
Tabitha Soren. I actually had like a small little like Twitter conversation with her a few months ago, but like she.
Oh, very cool, dude.
Yeah, very cool. I was really intrigued by the fact that she used to do really amazing things on MTV True Life. She really. I remember one episode. It's still in my head. Like where she went into like hang out with the gangs of South Central, and she went and she hung out with them, and she really explored these guys, and like, I mean, she really went in there, and it was so fascinating back then, because even True Life, it wasn't True Life. MTV now was like, I make love to my car, I eat paint chips for a living. Like, they're not
right.
They're not really doing the good true life stories.
I help me, I am not popular enough.
Mm-hmm. You know, like Kurt Loder's still writing for Rolling Stones, you know, like those guys.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Rolling Stone's very, I thought they're on my Facebook feed, and I see they get blowback from their readers who are Trump supporters. Like, Consequence of Sound, I follow them too, and then they'll report. Even the AV Club does, and they used to never report on politics. I follow a few, I guess you would call them culture, I don't know, music and TV and movies. And a few of them kind of jumped into the foray as far as reporting. And I never realized how left-leaning, I guess, Rolling Stone tends to be. Or maybe they're not. It's just with the Trump administration that they're just so but they're very anti-Trump. It's kind of funny to me.
I mean, we got to remember we've all got to remember, too, that Hunter S. Thompson used to work for them. Like, I mean, so there's so many... There was great people out there that were doing great work. I'm not saying that there's not great work still being done, but again, as I talked about in the last episode, we're listening to voice boxes and we're not listening to journalists. And that's the biggest problem right now. You know, if I wanted, all honesty, The Daily Show gives me better information than my local news does, you know, and I really appreciate, you know, the transition that's happened on The Daily Show. It's still been very hard for me to really, you know, grasp on from the you know, after losing Jon Stewart. But I really love Jon Stewart.
You know, he, I don't know what I was watching, but it was like a super cut of him talking. I wish I could, I'm not going to sit here and try and remember what it was, but basically what he said, he was on a Bill Maher show, I think, or maybe he was on Fox News, because he used to go right up on Bill O'Reilly's show, and I love that about him, is he wouldn't back down from conservatives, or, no, I'll debate you. And they were basically like, how do you feel about the fact that you're a news source? When he was like, I'm not a news source. He's like, literally, you know what follows after what my show leads from is puppets making crank phone calls, you know? And he was just highlighting the absurdity of the fact that his show is on Comedy Central and it's supposed to be satire, and people take that more seriously and listen more to him, you know, and his show comes after Crank Anchors. That's what it was called. That was a good show. I always liked it. It always cracked me up. I don't know if I'd find it funny now, but in my 20s it was hilarious. Yeah, but that's a great point, though, you know?
He was, you know, and I think Trevor Noah has done a good job, like, but I think that Trevor Noah has done a very good job on The Daily Show. Don't get me wrong. Trevor Noah has a very phenomenal story that I think everybody should really read about him. He's got a really interesting life that led up to where he's at today. But he is but he's not as overtly crazy as Jon Stewart, I think, was. Like you said, Jon Stewart and Bill O'Reilly, I love when they got together.
Jon Stewart didn't start out that way.
No.
You know, he kind of ramped it up as it went.
Yeah.
So
he was definitely,
those are very big shoes to fill, too.
Oh, that was huge. I mean, the way how Jon Stewart went from where The Daily Show was after Craig Kilborn. Was it Craig Kilborn? Yeah, it was, right? Craig Kilborn.
Craig, yes. Because Craig Ferguson is the British dude.
Yeah, and there's Craig. It was a Craig, I know that. And then it was Jon Stewart. And then Jon Stewart started off in this really, you know, the first few years of The Daily Show were really iffy whether or not it was going to stay. And then, you know, it really... And then Jon Stewart just made it into this thing. Him and Stephen Colbert actually really made that into a thing. And now, you know, it's fascinating how we have changed in that, where more people probably do watch The Daily Show, or they're out there, you know, finding other sources than they are of actual journal. Like, my kids, we don't finish dinner and then go watch the news. That's not the way that my parents did it, but now we listen to the news. We listen to it every morning. I listen to my NPR. You know, we've got the Google Home. So it's like, okay, Google, today's news. And, you know, it floats around in the house that we listen to the news. My kids do know what's going on, but that's legitimately, my kids get the news by listening through it more now from, like, whatever is on my NPR station. I have a whole thing from my Google Home where, you know, when I want the news to come on, it's first NPR, then it's PolitiFact, and then, you know, it goes through these news sources. So that way, when I am listening to the news, it doesn't just give me NPR's version of it. It'll be like, okay, yesterday at 4 p.m. from PolitiFact News. And then, you know, if I missed yesterday or if I didn't hear somebody else's version of the news, I get different sources of it, and so do my children as well, which is good or bad. At least, you know, they want to be informed. And my kids ask me all the time about how current events are going, and because for me, I want them to look into the facts of what's happening in this world right now, and I want them to be prepared for it and understand how they're privileged to be where they are, to live in a small town that's rather safe, that does have a low crime rate, but has problems within it. But that they also have an understanding that them being able to learn how to drive, them driving at night, them being out past curfew is going to have a different consequence for them than one of their friends who is black and driving at night, even in this town. And it's in that, and trying to make them culturally aware that it's not okay, and you need to make sure that at all times that, you're always aware of your surroundings, but you're also aware of what is going on in the world and how we can, conquer the racial divide, and that it's not fair. And I hope that by, the time in the next 5 years, when Parker does learn how to drive, that in the next 5 years I hope that we have made a stride into the racial divide, where it wouldn't matter whether him or one of his African American or Latin or Chinese or Asian or whoever friends is behind the wheel, that they're always going to be safe and that they're not going to get pulled over just because of their race.
You know what? Driving while black, I've talked about that before. My mom always listened. We watched the news too. I mean, back in our day, it came on constantly because we didn't have the internet until we were in our teens. But and there really wasn't that many news sources available, really. I mean, Yahoo News has been around for a minute, but I like to read other country news. Like you mentioned Al Jazeera. I like Al Jazeera. I like to read their take on things. I like to read the UK's take on this. I don't really read a lot of propaganda about the U.S. just because I don't read propaganda about other countries that we put out either. So it's kind of across the board for me. The Guardian, I'm a big fan of. Yes, I like a lot of left-leaning websites and whatnot, but I don't want to. I try to stay middle of the road and, like you, I like to PolitiFact. I love PolitiFact. I want just the facts. Don't gloss over it. Don't get me wrong, I don't like Trump, so I love snarky articles about him. They crack me up. But in the end, I want the facts. Like, even everything he does is outrageous, but, I definitely want to know if something's just a lie.
Absolutely. And if I find out, if
just
there's
because
a
I know
news
that
source
he's
that tells me that
capable of
Trump's
whatever.
doing something fantastic, and even if I don't want to believe it, I will believe it. Like,
That's great, right,
yeah,
right.
If he actually starts doing
If he
things,
is, then he is.
Hey, Crawford.
Yeah.
Marry, kill, fuck, Tom Hardy, Leonardo DiCaprio, and The Rock.
You know what? I thought about this. I didn't think about this. I love Tom Hardy. I would fuck him. I would. You know what? I've always been a fan of Leonardo DiCaprio since I was like 12. I would kill him just because, I feel like he's disposable in that group. And The Rock, I'd marry him because he's hilarious. I've never not been entertained by The Rock. I feel like, he'd keep me entertained for as long as he lives. So.
Yeah. No, I think I would have to actually. I think I'd actually have to agree to that. Leo, you're hot, but I would never marry him. I think he's too maintenance. Not that he's not trying to do right for the world, but he. Look, I appreciate Leo, but I'd kill you, and then I would definitely fuck Tom Hardy, and I would definitely marry The Rock. Hands down.
I would fuck him a lot, actually. But anyways, you got a round two there, Miles?
Oh, let's see here. My round two of marry, kill, fuck. Let's go with some olden boys. So we're gonna up the age ante. Got Patrick Stewart, Tom Hanks.
Ooh, I almost included him.
Yep. Tom Hanks, Patrick Stewart, and Sean Connery.
Oh my gosh. That's a rough one. Oh my goodness. Well, what would you do?
Well, let's see here. Marry Tom Hanks, kill Sean Connery, fuck Patrick Stewart.
No. I definitely would kill Sean Connery. I don't know. You know what? I think I read somewhere that he was a woman beater, so I think I would kill him. But damn that accent,
Yeah.
I'd probably marry Patrick Stewart. And what was the third choice here?
Tom Hanks.
Oh, Tom Hanks. God, would I want to fuck Tom Hanks though?
I told you, golden oldies, man.
Shit. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're right, Jean-Luc Picard.
Yes.
I would fuck, but I would definitely have to kill Sean Connery, and I guess I'd marry Tom Hanks. I guess I agree.
Yeah. Those are my golden oldies.
I worked through that. I apologize. So, what are our predictions for 2018?
Oh, let's see here. Well, we have began February. By the way, happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month. Yeah, today the groundhog saw his shadow. 6 more weeks of winter. I don't believe anybody was surprised by that.
Nope, not at all. Especially if you live in Ohio. We're gonna have winter in like June. Okay, it's gonna fucking snow in June.
Yeah, it'll pop down to degrees in May and be 80 the next day.
Absolutely.
No lie.
It
has happened.
So there's my 28 prediction. I predict that it's going to snow in late May, early June. I think that we are going to go into such a sense of nationalism against Russia that it's going to remind us of the 1950s. And the TV show The Americans is going to become like a full-force reality TV. I think that...
I didn't know you watched that.
Yeah, I watched the first 3 seasons.
I love that show.
Yeah, I haven't gotten past the first 3 seasons, but the first 3 seasons
Yeah, I think I'm working through the last one.
And
I like that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Pennsylvania might have said that they're going to get rid of the jail bond system, but they actually are saying that they're not going to follow the judge's request for them to get rid of their gerrymandering problem that they have. So I think that the midterms are going to be a fight. I don't think the midterms are not going to be okay.
This isn't going to be an easy win.
No.
Oh, big.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of legislation that is going to get pushed through. I think that the stock market by July will completely come to a crash, and that we will see interest rates on our houses rise, and skyrocket. And I think that and I think that the drug epidemic with the opiates, that nothing will come of DeWine suing the pharmaceutical brands. That's not going to change at all. And I think that our Medicare system, I'm going to wait till about June when not going to do shit. And by June, when my insurance goes through again, I'm going to say it's going to up itself by probably another $100 extra a month. Those are my predictions halfway through the year. Those are my half 2018 predictions so far.
What do you think of the Mueller investigation? When do you think we'll actually start seeing some good information and that get to a... I can't wait for Trump. He's like, yeah, I'll talk to him, and his lawyer's like, whoa.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see Robert Mueller fired by April at the latest. I really do. I think that he will fire him. I think that this memo that came out was to...
But Hillary's emails, okay? Hillary's emails. Who cares about what Trump's
I think
doing?
that she
Hillary's
was dirty.
emails.
I mean, look, I'm not saying that Hillary Clinton wasn't dirty. I think she was, but...
You know, I always say, though, every supporter, they're like, but Hillary's emails. But, well, you know, I'll read articles, and I always I don't know why I click on comments, because it just annoys me. But, you know, you're like, well, at least he didn't store emails on a private server in his basement. Oh, yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. He was only fucking a porn star while he was married. You know, keep up those good values there, you fucking evangelicus fucking bullshit.
Exactly.
Assholes. I think that...
give him such a pass.
Dude, they give him such a pass. They praise him. I mean, that one fucking pastor up there was like, hey, I fucked a teenage boy, and they all, like, stood up and they cheered for him for being a fucking child molester.
Oh, yeah, you know,
I think religion's going to come to a halt. I think we're going to have another cult thing. I think we're going to have another Waco, Texas / Gateway, Heaven's Gate kind of situation. That's what I believe. I believe another Waco / Heaven's Gate, maybe a little bit of a mix of both. And I'm going to go with, let's see, school shootings are up to 12 now, even though I understand that the last one that happened wasn't, quote unquote, it wasn't supposed to be intentional.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, still happened. I'm going to go with school shootings, let's go with, we're in February, we're at 12. I'm going to go with 75 school shootings by the end of the year.
Ooh, that's scary. I would say 112.
112, all right. So
yeah, I mean... I
like this. Now I want to start putting this shit down on our calendar.
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be like, back to predictions. It's middle of the year.
I think it's a good idea.
Here we are in our basement. Just came back from getting our rations. Yeah.
Ooh, net neutrality. How do you... Crawford, what's gonna happen with net neutrality? What do you think's gonna happen?
They're gonna roll it back, dude. They're gonna roll it back. We're getting fucked on net neutrality.
Yeah, you think so?
I don't know. I think it's still up in the air, but I don't think enough people care until, I repeat this so much, it's almost like people don't care about something until it affects them directly.
Yeah.
And that's like with cancer or diseases. Like, nobody gives a fuck about HIV or cancer or bad water or fracking or anything else until it affects them. Then they're like, oh, we need to do something about this. We're so apathetic towards each other's plights and the world's plights and our country's plights and climate and all this, that nobody cares until it happens. So there's not enough people that care. I mean, I see it all the time on Facebook where people or Twitter will post about net neutrality, and I'll see comments like, what's this about? Like, we've been talking about this for like 3 years, several years now. How do you not know anything about net neutrality? And the thing is nobody's going to care until it's been rolled back and they don't like that they got to pay. I think we did a document on net neutrality, and I pasted in a couple of charts, and it was showing how I think Brazil it was $5.99 for Hulu, $5.99 to get on Facebook. I mean, they just piecemeal it out to you. It's like buying apps on your phone. Like, you won't be able to just log on to Facebook, people, and that's I know everybody, our generation uses Facebook. I know the younger generations are using Instagram and Snapchat, and my kids, that they don't really use Facebook a whole lot. Well, my younger son does. My older one, he uses Facebook more, but he's not very far in age from me. So I think that people are just not going to care enough until it happens, and then they see their bills and they realize how bad it is, and then that's when people are going to get upset about it.
I absolutely agree to that. People, I think, are just still like, oh, well, net neutrality, it happened, no worries.
No big deal. I don't even know what that's about. But, like, did you see Keeping Up with the Kardashians last night?
Oh my God. Why do we still care about them?
I'm sorry.
Don't understand why after all these years we still care about them. Like, what? I don't. Why? Why do we care about that?
Reality TV in general. I have to sit through, like, a lot of our members don't have cable. We have cable. So a lot of people will come in at night and watch their primetime TV. And I have to sit through Survivor and all of these awful reality shows, and I just want to stab myself in the neck. And it never fails that if I turn on a TV on once, because I've got 3 sides to my bar. A lot of people won't sit on the far left side just because you have to walk all the way around. And so I'll turn that TV on to what I want to watch, and it never fails when I put it on something that's actually interesting. Or I'll put the news, I'll put CNN on that side, like they only watch Fox News here. It never fails that somebody will wander their fat ass over there and sit down, take the remote, and put it on fucking Survivor or Cake Boss or Big Brother. Yeah, that was a big one this year. I don't care about reality TV. I hate reality TV. I think it's stupid. It's scripted. It's even reality TV. Like, remember on MTV, what was that show? When people being real, or something about stop being fake and things get real, or something.
Talk about the Real World on MTV.
Yes, back in the day when it was
Real World and Road World.
They really they actually just broadcast what was happening. I'm sure there was edits and stuff, but now it's just so scripted.
The first 5 seasons were phenomenal. The first one to this day, I mean, you still can't. I mean,
I'm still very, very attached to those characters. I feel bad because I can't recall his name, but he passed on from AIDS after
Pedro.
the season. Yes, I was gonna say Pedro, and I wasn't sure, but
Pedro, and then the roommate that they kicked out was Puck.
Puck. Yeah, I still remember Puck. He was a messenger. That show had a real impression on me, which MTV back then was just great. MTV News. They were still doing music videos. They had The Real World. I loved when they did Spring Break. I always loved Spring Break on MTV.
So much fun.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the golden time for MTV. They had a great set of DJs. They called them VJs, but they had some, like you were talking about, Tabitha Soren, Kennedy,
Kurt Loder.
Those were all what we came up with. We were getting our entertainment, but at the same time they were educating us in a very under the water. Like, we didn't even realize that we were being educated, and like they mixed in music and things that we were interested in, and it just kind of MTV News. I used to always catch MTV News.
Yep, always.
I don't know why. I think that was almost like a precursor to Daily News, almost. The Daily Show, because. I know they're not a lot alike, but they are. It was an entertainment avenue that we got information from that you normally wouldn't get news from or anything like that. Yeah, and it was presented in a way that people make you think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we had Sway on as well. Sway he was definitely one of my favorites as well. I mean, there was so many There were so many good ones. I mean, if you go through the list, I mean, it's insane how many VJs came out of MTV that, just good.
We'll do a I Love 90s episode.
Please, yay! I love it.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be fun.
We'll talk about all the people, like, where are they now? What are they doing? Where can you still catch them? Like, all those people we just talked about, and, I don't know, do a little bit more digging, like, what happened to this? What's this? I love those kind of shows. Like, I love the 90s, I love the 80s, or the 80s, or, just, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if it'll be popular with our listeners or not, but I think that'd be kind of, since we did such a hard-hitting series this time, maybe next time of the episode afterwards, we'll do kind of a throwback retro.
Oh, I love it. We'll talk about all the fun things that we loved in the 90s, because there were so many good things.
And I bet our listeners will be like, oh yeah, I forgot all about Shrinky Dink.
Shrinky Dinks and Slap Bracelet.
Oh, and Lisa Frank, dude.
Lisa Frank everything.
I want it all. I need a Trapper Keeper, and I need Lisa Frank all over it.
All over it.
Oh, do you remember the pencils that had like the little leads that you could, you pulled them out, you put them in?
Yeah.
They were like a little white tip. Yes, those were my jam.
Yes, those were so good. Oh, there were so many great things came out of the 90s. Bracelets and all your friendship bracelets and your friendship necklaces. And, choker chains.
Oh, dude, I still once in a while will wear one of those. I've noticed those have kind of come back, like the woven ones or whatever.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of girls with like a plastic one on their neck. It cracks me up. I'm like, I wore that for like 4 years straight.
Yeah. I mean, it's really insane though, man. I'm looking at like MTV former VJs. I mean, you're talking about, that's even where Chris Hardwick got his start, I believe. I mean, Colin Quinn, Daisy Fuentes. I mean, we're talking about.
Go on. I mean, I think I love the fact that we're just brainstorming while we podcast. Like, listen, what we're going to do next time. You know what? That's a great idea. I love it.
Just do it. Do it all. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we probably should be wrapping this up, though.
Oh, yeah.
I have to get back to the
variety hour and shit. I think this has been a variety.
This has been a variety. I really do like this. And thank you, guys. Thank you for your listens. Thank you for the shout-outs. Thank you for all the follows that we've gotten on Twitter. Thank you for the love. But seriously, you want to
love our community.
Yeah, and if you guys want some stickers, or that's all we've got right now. They're quarter-size stickers.
It represents our show in a perfect way.
It really does. And you guys want to
free magnifying glass with it?
Yeah, just let us know. We'll totally mail it out to you, because it's gonna cost me probably like.
Yeah. You better buy a book of stamps, bitch.
Oh my god. So
next time they'll be bigger.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, yeah, I want one of those.
Yeah. Something really cool, we promise. We'll start getting some stuff out there, some sweet swag.
Shop, so we can start making like tinfoil hats.
Oh my god.
If people want to buy like an MC Variety Hour tinfoil hat.
If people who are still listening legitimately want a tinfoil hat, I will send you some foil with a sticker, and I will mail it to you, and I will give you instructions on how to make a tinfoil hat.
Oh no, I'm gonna make them like a pilgrim, like a 3-corner hat,
Ooh.
and put a sticker on it. That's because we're revolutionaries.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't want that to be scanned. No, just kidding. No, but if you want a tinfoil hat, just let us know, because I'll make you a 3-corner hat. Miles will slap a sticker on it, and boom, there you go. We'll have to fold it flat back down. So.
Oh, it's so perfect, though. I love it. I love this idea.
You know how easy it is to undo foil once you've crumpled it up.
Right. So good. So good.
All right, so should we sign off with milesandcrawford.com, Patreon, potable.co. What is our link? I'm sorry, you know that one better than I do.
It's just potable.co and then type in Miles and Crawford. I mean, it's like potable.co/30023, but I could be wrong on that one. But if you just go to potable.co, we're on Podbean. I mean, we're legitimately.
We're on Libsyn.
Yeah.
That's not really giving me a great return. You're pissing me off, Libsyn.
Damn it.
You're pissing me off. I upgraded the plan, and we ain't got shit for listens on Libsyn, so I feel like you can't see it, everybody, but I'm flipping off Libsyn.
Yeah. Fuck, man.
We are just about anywhere and everywhere. We just updated our Google Play. Miles just pointed out to me that I never updated it from our last RSS feed, so that's all up to date. If you've tried to listen to us, that's good to go for you. iTunes just introduced analytics, so we can actually see who's listening to us on iTunes and whatnot, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's been podcasters in general know how annoying that is, that you can't track anything on iTunes. So they just introduced that this week. So yeah, who else? Potter and family. Who else do you want to give a shout out to or mention real
quick? All
of
you guys.
Everybody.
I mean everybody. I mean I've been talking about the same ones off and on. I mean they've all just been so fantastic for us. I mean.
The podcasting community is very supportive of each other, even if they have nothing to do with each other or common interests. Just the fact, just because you have a podcast, they're like, get it, buddy.
Yeah. Well, there's great ones like this one called Aces Spotlight. They're always giving us shout outs. Tunic Hoon is always giving us shout outs weekly. We're on every one of their Thursday follows or Friday follows. Dumb All Over podcast. I really do. I love Dumb All Over. They've got a really great podcast as well. Politics with Dummies. I love them guys. Those guys are just great. There's so many. I really wish I could just break down give you a list of 50 because you know me. I'm like, hey, listen to these guys. These guys are great because I'm always listening to podcasts.
You should do a blog post, podcast favorites by the Miles and Crawford.
Oh, I like that. I will have to do that.
Do a top 25. Well, no, we don't want to rank them.
No.
But, here's our weekly recommendations, because that's what Miles does. She listens to podcasts, and then
8 hours a day sometimes.
She reports back, so this is what I heard this podcast doing. I'm like, all right. Yeah. You are amazing.
They're all giving me great ideas. I hear how some of them, how they talk or, how they do things. And, we're still babies in this. I mean, honestly, we're still babies in this podcasting experiencing. So, I mean, we don't know how many episodes we're going to get out of this, but we're hoping along. And I hope that by the time that we're in episode 50, that we can, that we're going to have some great times by then.
I think we will, and who knows what it'll transform into, and, we're just, that's why it's a variety hour, because we didn't really know what we wanted to do, but we knew we wanted to do something, so.
And we've been doing it little by little.
Yep, and I'm really excited, because it feels like it's finally starting to take off, and, it was 6 months of us, but I have to give it to Miles. I really think it was her networking, and being like, we need to be on Podbean, and, I think she's the one that really gave us a kickoff, dude, so. Definitely. Happy birthday. You're amazing.
Thanks.
35.
Oh.
And you're rocking our podcast. And she's an amazing sales lady. She's going to be on sales trips soon. She's a mom. She's a wife. Miles is amazing. And she still always has lots of energy to do research and rant and do blog posts.
I love coffee. If you ever want to give me anything, give me some coffee.
Yeah. Send us coffee.
Coffee and whiskey all day.
Maybe someday we'll be able to buy coffee and put our logo on it, like our favorite brew or something, where you can do that.
Yeah, we can get a Fort Finley Donut Shop. They you give them a week advance notice, and we can just be like, we want a dark or a mid roast, blah blah blah, with this kind of flavor. They'll make it.
We can slap our sticker on it. We'll bag it, slap our sticker on it, and that's what we'll do next year for Christmas.
Yes, I love it. We'll
send it to our Patreon patrons. There you go. You get a free bag of coffee to enjoy coffee with us. We'll all sip the same coffee together. Not the Kool-Aid.
Never the Kool-Aid.
We would never force Kool-Aid on you, listeners.
Hey, by the way, as a small FYI, I just got the news in. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is now monitoring Imodium AD.
Because you can get high off that. You know why they figured that out? Because heroin addicts take so much of it to stop the runs that they were like, whoa, if you take enough of these, you get fucked up.
Yes, that's craziness. Sorry, I had it. That's
I heard about that a few months ago. I was like, whoa, really? I saw whispers about it. You can get high off Imodium. How many do you need to take? I just asking for a friend. I'm totally not going to take 12. No, I not like that. I don't take over the counter to get high. I don't even get that. But anyways, yeah, I heard about that. Very interesting. It's like we can't have anything, people.
We can't have it. We can't even have Imodium AD. Damn it.
That's why we can't have nice things, folks. Because you all use it up and destroy it. Here, we still have Quaaludes if it weren't for our moms and dads.
Oh my God, so freaking true.
All right, well, that kind of ties it up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us ramble and rant. I hope you enjoyed our 3-part series on drugs in America and kind of touch. I mean, it's we could have done a 12-part series, honestly, and really got.
We'll still bring it up. Don't you worry. I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna tie this in. We still got a few more episodes coming ahead of us, but we've now I think conquered the Contras and Gary Webb. And if you're interested, there's plenty of information. And I'm going to put out some more information on our Patreon page, just for enlightenment. So yeah, we'll continue on and we'll see what next week brings us.
Yeah, could be completely serious, could be complete bullshit. I mean, we usually know by Tuesday.
It's so true.
And then we throw something up on Thursday, and then by Friday we read it as we're podcasting. No,
absolutely.
Oh, just kidding. We're getting better at it. But thank you for listening. See you next week, and have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.